Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ohoud Associate Prof of Critical Care Pharmacotherapy as well as a consultant critical care pharmacist. I am currently the Director of a Critical Care Pharmacy Residency Program and I'm one of the key founders of the Saudi Critical Care Pharmacy Research Platform. Today, we would like to introduce you to a very important aspect of your research journey, which is how to respond to peer reviewer comments. By the end of this video, you will be able to understand the basic concept of the peer review process. I will refer to it as PR throughout this presentation. You will be able to understand the tips that you need to consider when you respond to PR comment, with showing some example of different type of PR comment and how to address it or how to tackle those comments. To begin with, what is the peer review process? The peer review process, it is a type of a critical evaluation process where an expert in a field evaluate, assess, and review your work, specifically your manuscript that you have been working on it from idea to submission. When you are seeking a submission in academic journal, this process usually has to be in a place if this is a very reputable journal. However, be very concerned if the journal does not carry a peer review process, as it might be a predatory journal or not well respected journal. This process, the intention of this process is to ensure the quality as well as the validity of your research that is reported in your manuscript. There are several steps of the peer review process. First of all, you as an author has to submit the manuscript to a journal for consideration. And this step usually after you consulting your research team and talking with your mentor, supervisor, your colleagues, and the journal that meet the scope, and you ensure the journal readers that they're going to be interested in your article and all of that. So typically, you've done all of that as steps before the publication process. After you submit your article or your manuscript to a certain journal, the editor of that journal will assign your manuscript to a group of independent reviewers, meaning those reviewers they don't know each other, they don't know you as well. So it's a very blinded process where an expert in a field related to the subject matter of the manuscript or people who publish in the same field of your article will get invited to review it for technical issue, for novelty, for originality, for the methodology, data analysis, conclusion, the significance of your research on a clinical practice, for example. All of that aspect will be critically evaluated by the reviewer. And then they will suggest a revision or a rejection or an acceptance or an improvement to your manuscript. Based on the feedback that the editor will receive from the reviewer, the editor can decide whether to accept the manuscript or to reject it, or to ask you as an author to make further revision based on the feedback given by the expert opinion or the reviewer that they send the manuscript to. If revision are requested, what is your role as an author? You have to respond to the reviewer feedback in a timely manner, meaning most of the editor will give you a timeline or a due date. Please stick to that due date and answer all the reviewer comment or feedback, address all of them, and make the necessary changes if they ask for changes in your manuscript before resubmitting your work. Once a manuscript has been successfully resubmitted and passed the peer review process, it can be then published in the journal. What are the types of the peer review process? What are the decisions that you might receive an author? There are 5 common decisions that you will receive as a researcher or as a manuscript author. One, they either gonna accept your article as it is, and this is very rare to happen. If you are writing a top-notch paper, an RCT, a well-conducted study, this might happen. But also you should question yourself if a journal directly accepts your article as it is. The other two common, or I would say most valuable decision are those where they have revisions for you to do. In my opinion, those are more helpful than accepted as it is or rejected as it is, because this will help you to improve your paper and the structure of your manuscript, and it might bring to the table point that you might not be aware of it, you or your research team. So they either have you either gonna have a minor revision where the article will be accepted for publication after you carry out certain minor revision, or major revision. So the article will require a major revision, maybe a reanalysis, a more data collection, changing something in the method, extend the period of the data collection, and can be reconsidered for publication after you address that major revisions. The fourth type of decision is reject and resubmit. So the article in the current form, they will reject it. However, they encourage you to revise and resubmit again for further consideration. The last decision where most of us will not like is the article rejected and without comment. And this is not very helpful for us as a researcher because it does not provide any feedback and you don't know why it's rejected. One of the common thing of that type of rejection, probably picking a wrong journal that does not fit in the scope of your article, or aiming too high for a journal and the quality of your project that you aim, for example, to less impact factor in some scenario. What are the different kind of PR comment and how to respond to them? Here I will highlight the general type of comments, and then I'll provide a general overview on how to formulate the response. After that, I will tackle each kind of PR comment with providing example and how to respond to them. So the peer review comments are either a general feedback on your overall quality of the manuscript, overall structure, organization, and the significance of your manuscript or research to the field or to the clinical practice. And that's also need from you a response to them. Other type of comments that are on the methodology, for example, giving a feedback or a constructive feedback or a critique for the type of analysis that you have used, the method that you match the group, the design that you are using, and sometimes this includes a very valuable suggestion to improve the study, and if this couldn't be improved, it might bring for the table some limitation of the study that you have to acknowledge in your manuscript. Also providing suggestion for additional literature or data to strengthen the argument that you are building, or to strengthen the justification that you added for your finding. Identification of error or inconsistency. Maybe in some part of the manuscript you have grammar error, or spelling error, or error in the numbers in the table, or inconsistency in the percentage, for example, that you reporting, or gaps in the manuscript where something is lacking and the reviewer would like more details about it. Sometimes the suggestion could be only for language and style and formatting, and that's some of the most common editorial comment. Other could be critiquing your interpretation, conclusion, or the applicability of your research for the practice. Other comment might be ethical or legal concern that need to be addressed. For example, did you have a waiver of patient consent? Some they would ask how you conducted this study, while your ethical approval shows the date different than the date that the data has been conducted, and that's raised an ethical concern during the reviewer process. Regardless what is the kind of the comments that you receive from peer reviewers, the key factor to consider in your response depends on three major categories: the validity of the comment themselves that you are receiving, the clarity of your response, and this is very important. If they are talking about X point, try to be very clear and to clarify your response that is tackling exactly the point, so you can reply in a way that you pick the same, you speaking the same language with your reviewer, you knowing their mindset, and that's your response will be very clear to be read by your reviewer and to be well accepted by the reviewer. The other most important thing is the tone of your message. Try to be professional, polite, diplomatic. Avoid defensive tone or aggressive tone or non-professional tone in your review, in your response to the reviewer comment. There are some general 10 tips to consider when respond to PR comments. First of all, take your time to read as well as to understand the comment. One of the most weak point that the author do is not fully understand the reviewer comment and they jump to response. Be respectful, professional in your response. If you disagree, state clearly why you disagree with that comment without being attacking or harsh or aggressive or defensive about your opinion. Address each comment. Don't leave any comment without addressing it individually and provide a clear response to each one. Each reviewer, they don't talk to each other. So even if the comment is repetitive, from reviewer 1 to reviewer 2, you have to address each one individually. Use a specific example or evidence to support your response if you need to. Avoid being defensive, as I mentioned, or dismissive of the comment. As you're revising your manuscript, of course, you need to revise it again after you address the changes that the reviewer recommended. Also, you have to revise your response letter. And even if it means making a significant changes in your manuscript, you have to take that in consideration. If you choose not to make the suggested changes, that's fine, but you have to explain why in a very clear and respectful manner. Of course, receiving peer reviewer comments sometimes is not an easy acceptable phase of your research journey. After doing this research for months or years sometime, and then have a very constructive criticism or negative feedback on your project, that's not very a pleasant feeling. However, try to be open to constructive criticism and use it as an opportunity. Remember that those reviewers are not paid to give you feedback, but try to think very positive that you have an opportunity that someone carefully review your work so you can improve your manuscript. So that's why you need to thank the reviewer for their time and effort in providing you with the feedback. Before you respond, proofread your response before submitting it to ensure it's clear, professional, and not carry any mistakes. Now we move to how to respond to different kind of peer reviewer comments with some example, real example of some comments. First of all, the general comment or the general feedback. Those kind of comment are not specific and usually is meant to express overall opinion about the paper. You need to respond by thank you the reviewer for their input and ask if there is any specific suggestion or example to improve your paper. Most of those reviewers, they will write for you some specific suggestion and comment, so you don't need to ask them for more if they already provided that. Here is an example of one of the reviewer that commented that the paper is an excellent and well-written report, and what they found it interesting about this specific paper in comparison to other study, for example. A reply as simple as "Thanks for your positive feedback and your interest," and the author appreciate the time and effort in reviewing the study or in providing feedback that help in improving the quality of our work and such thing. A bad reply would be a bad reply will not be polite, for example, to ignore that comment, or to say, thank you, we know that our work is very unique. We know this is the first study of its kind. Those are not the very welcomed reply. The other type of comment are very specific suggestion, and those are where we move to either a specific part of your manuscript and they have comment on it, or a specific area that need an improvement. Again, you have to thank the reviewer by making suggested changes or explaining why you choose not to make them. For example, here is a comment from a reviewer saying that the results part is very impressive. Despite the matching, the reviewer cannot shake off the impression that the treatment group is different than the control group, and says that it would be important to know the reason why X treatment was initiated to begin with. We see here the author thanks the reviewer for this point and address that is as shown in the baseline. So making the reviewer to look back to the baseline table by saying, as shown in our result, baseline illness was no different between the two groups. In addition to the authors conducted several analyses to control for the difference between the group and naming the analysis so the reviewer can go back and look at it to see the result. And in terms of reason to initiate X treatment, as simple as the author provide the fact that there is no certain criteria for starting the treatment in the centers. However, it was primarily based on the clinical judgment. So they don't lie about it or mislead or give a vague statement. They clearly stated the fact that they have while conducting the study on different centers. Another kind of comment are technical or methodological issues. These comments related to flow in the method or in the type of analysis that you use or other technical aspect of the paper. You have to respond by addressing the issue and provide additional data, evidence, conduct reanalysis or explanation as needed. For example, here is a part of a comment from a reviewer that thinking that because active group include patient who's using the treatment prior and during, for example, ICU stay, it might limit the power of the study and suggest it will be interested to analyze those two as subgroup or only focus on patient who treatment initiated during ICU only. The author thinks this is a very valuable input, so they thanks the reviewer for this excellent suggestion, and then you would, because you are agreeing with it, so you have to do something about it and do additional data collection or additional analysis. So the reviewer says, the author says, agree with the reviewer, and it's as it is very valid point. Thus, the author extended the inclusion period to compensate for the number of included patients. In addition, they conducted a subgroup analysis as suggested, and they updated their manuscript accordingly. A bad reply would be, thanks for your comment. However, we think our group are well balanced and we don't need to carry an additional subgroup analysis due to, for example, time constraint, or we think it's not valuable. This would be a type of very bad reply. A structural or organizational, and this is a type of comment where they suggest to, for example, to add more, to structure it in a certain way, or to organize, or to add more detail in certain part. Respond by revising the paper organizational structure and ask the reviewer to provide additional feedback. For example, here is a comment where a reviewer suggests to have a specific section to elaborate more or to specify how the data conducted or the process of data conduction in the method section in more detail. So the author already mentioned data collection in the method, but they want to structure it in a different way with having more detail than the one already written. So the author thanks the reviewer for this suggestion and elaborate that they already have the detailed data collection in the study method part. However, if the reviewer needs more clarification to add part of the data collection in the method, more detail, so as for more clarification as suggested, they have added following data in the revised version based on the reviewer comment. Editorial issues usually carries on grammar, spelling, and other language issues. One tip to avoid those type of editorial issues is to stick to the author guideline. For each journal, there is an author guide which shows what type of reference style to use, the type of English language to use. Is it American language or a British language or a British English? Try to format your manuscript based on that author guide. However, sometimes they might catch some grammar or spelling mistake, specifically if the writer of the manuscript are not an English-speaking people. So here is a comment about suggest revising the English language of the manuscript. So the author replied by they done revise the language issues and did multiple edits as suggested. Last type of comments where I found it very hard to have it as a categorized, but those are very negative comment where it might carry some bias, some stereotype, some sarcastic behavior from the reviewer, contradictory, like reviewer 1 recommends something, however reviewer 2 recommends something totally against that, aggressive comments, subjective comment, a comment that carry a lot of assumptions, and those are very harsh in a way for the author and their team. However, it's not very hard to respond to them. So you have to start as other comment by acknowledging the peer comment and thank them for taking part of their time and effort to review your manuscript. Next, if there is a specific issue they have been raised in that type of comment, try to address it. If the comment is biased or sarcastic, try to calm yourself and avoid getting very defensive. If there is a totally wrong assumption in that comment, back up your claim with evidence and relevant literature. This will help you to support your argument and show that you have done your homework rather than just being defensive about your work. Remember to stay polite, respectful of the time, even if you strongly disagree with the comment. If you're unsure or the comment was only providing no valuable point that you need to address, as simple as you can ask for more clarification, and this will help to avoid any misunderstanding, or you can reply, as far as I understood, you are asking about that, thus this is my reply. However, if I misunderstand, I apologize for that, and could you please clarify more what you meant by X and Y. Here is an example of a comment where I think carries a lot of things that I mentioned in this specific kind of comment. The reviewer says the author has, it seems this is a second revision, and the author has improved their paper significantly, but he still has another opinion. So the reviewer says the author has improved their paper significantly. And luckily, so this is a very maybe impolite or very not aggressive, but it provides a lot of sarcastic to the review. It says luckily they have the data that he asked for example, or they asked for, but the X data, which are extremely important, even though that the author has included now, it's badly presented. So use the phrase badly presented. And then assume that the research team is a pharmacist only. However, the research team was a multidisciplinary research team by saying the pharmacist author team seems to be little aware about the severity of the problem. So he assumed, or they assume, that the research team is only pharmacist and they have no knowledge about the severity of X problem. And the reviewer provides some reference to look at it. And then he assumed, or he blamed the authors that they are hiding important data in the supplemental table. And this is a very huge assumption that is not even related to the journal guideline, or this reviewer is not even know the journal guideline. So he claimed, or the reviewer claimed, that the author hide important data in supplemental table, and that's not sufficient and must be visible because after propensity matching is close to significant. Let's say how the author tackled such a comment. The author replied by, as I mentioned, thank for your careful review of the manuscript and providing comment that improved the quality of the manuscript. So acknowledge their effort. Then XX data has been added in the result and discussion section and highlighted. So it's not badly presented. By not being defensive, by being very neutral, professional, polite. A bad reply on that will say, our data is not badly presented and is presented in the manuscript, being defensive about it. The other thing, the part where he assumed, or the reviewer assumed, that the research team only pharmacists and they have little knowledge about that, so they provide a reference for more reading. The author replied, beside reading with interest the suggested article about X subject, as a multidisciplinary research team, and this is to bringing to the table that actually this is not a pharmacist author team, it's a multi-research team. So the reviewer would think, oh, that was a bad assumption from me. And then the research team acknowledged that they are totally aware about the importance of that, of the maintaining adequate X level in a critically ill patient. However, why they didn't include it, or they don't look at it. However, the mean level of this, whatever the lab value that in question in the cohort was, in both group, the control and treatment group, was normal to almost mild in both group. So there is no reason to address it or highlight it very significantly. And then in terms that the assumption that the author hide important data in supplemental table, the author replied that they provided the baseline characteristic as supplemental table due to the journal limitation of larger data set as written in the journal guideline of too wide table. It's too hard to fit in A4 and should be uploaded as supplemental file. And give the reviewer that the revised result and discussion section included X data clearly. A bad reply would say, we didn't hide the data. The data is available, but we didn't, for example, hide the data. And this shows you how it's very important to reply politely and calm and avoid replying while you are angry. To wrap up this important topic, there are some key messages to address. First of all, if you feel that you received a harsh review, give yourself time to digest the review before attempting to respond while you're angry or sensitive about it. Read all the comments carefully before answering them. Don't answer while you are angry. Those professional or those reviewer are volunteer and they try to help you to improve your research. So take it from that positive part. If you find contradictory comment between two reviewers, typically just stick with what you think is more appropriate. And that's conclude my video today. I hope you find it fruitful information. Thank you for listening and good luck.